Good morning, and welcome to your early morning Stylo News Intelligence Update for the 8th of May, 2026. I'm your host, and today we're taking a calm, objective look at the AfPak region, specifically the escalating cycle of friction between Pakistan and Afghanistan. We're relying entirely on the data and intelligence gathered over the past 2 weeks to give you a clear, factual assessment of what's actually happening on the ground. So let's get right into it.
But first, before we dive into the analysis, we'd like to acknowledge our sponsor, ProWave AI. They are the developers of Stylo Intel Ops, which is an AI-powered open-source intelligence platform, as well as Stylo News, the commercial version you can use on the web or through their mobile apps. It's truly their data aggregation that makes this morning's briefing possible.
Here is a quick look at our agenda for today. First, we'll map the regional flashpoints. Second, we'll trace the escalation patterns. Third, we're examining strategic perspectives. Fourth, evaluating intelligence sentiment. And finally, we will give you our forecast for the days ahead.
Let's start with the bottom line up front. Based on the intelligence we've gathered over the last 2 weeks, we assess that the risk of a full-scale, conventional war breaking out in the region is currently low. However, there is a moderate to high risk of localized episodic border conflict. This essentially means we should expect continued cross-border friction, but we're not looking at large-scale armored warfare.
Section 1. Mapping the regional flashpoints. We are currently monitoring 2 primary reporting zones. Up north, the Kunar province sector has seen significant aerial and artillery activity. Then, much further south, you have the Chaman-Spin Boldak border crossing, which remains a critical yet highly volatile logistics node. The sheer geographic distance between these 2 points is telling. It indicates a broader pattern of tension all along that shared border, rather than just an isolated one-off skirmish.
Section 2. Escalation patterns and impacts.
What we're witnessing right now is a steady, rhythmic escalation. It's a textbook action-reaction cycle. Back in mid-April, intelligence channels lit up with reports of fresh firefights at the Chaman crossing, heavily disrupting local trade. By late April, the theater shifted north, with multiple sources reporting Pakistani cross-border strikes hitting the Syed Jamaluddin Afghan University complex in Kunar province. And rolling into early May, we tracked continued Afghan-Taliban-linked firing into Pakistan's Bajaur and South Waziristan districts.
Make no mistake, this counterinsurgency environment remains highly kinetic. 22. That is the official number of militants reported killed by Pakistani forces in just a single firefight near the Afghan border during this 2-week window. It really underscores the lethal reality on the ground and highlights the continuous operations occurring just below the threshold of formal state-on-state war.
So what's driving all this friction? Our intelligence estimates consistently point to one main structural driver: the persistent sanctuary and freedom of action for anti-state militants, primarily the TTP and ISKP, right in these border regions. Pakistan maintains that these groups are using Afghan territory to launch attacks, while the Afghan Taliban frequently denies those claims. Ultimately, this unresolved issue is the engine keeping these military clashes going.
The collateral impact of these operations is definitely significant. As we noted in our April 29th Stylo intelligence estimate, civilian casualties and university damage increase pressure on the Afghan Taliban to respond. You see, when military strikes result in civilian harm or infrastructure damage, like the incident in Kunar, it shifts the dynamic. It goes from a purely tactical military issue to a severe diplomatic and political crisis, which naturally increases the likelihood of retaliatory fire.
Section 3. Perspectives and possible actions. Objectively evaluating the differing viewpoints here reveals some really stark contrasts. Pakistan is demanding an end to militant sanctuaries, and they are likely to continue punitive, limited cross-border strikes. The Afghan Taliban, on the other hand, denies harboring militants, framing their retaliatory artillery fire strictly as territorial self-defense. Meanwhile, India is maintaining a watchful eye on the whole situation. They're holding their border posture steady without direct interference, though their long-standing rivalry with Pakistan obviously remains a foundational element of regional security planning.
The dynamic we are seeing is actually a classic example of coercive diplomacy. By definition, that's the use of threats or limited force to persuade an opponent to alter their behavior, without tipping into total war. For instance, during this period, Pakistan publicly tested the Timor cruise missile. While that test wasn't aimed at Afghanistan, actions like that, along with cross-border artillery use, are fundamental tools of coercive diplomacy. It's a way of signaling military capability and resolve to deter any neighboring state.
Section 4. Intelligence sources and sentiment.
When analyzing a dispute like this, we have to weigh highly divergent information streams. Official state broadcasts, as you might expect, focus on border defense, anti-terror resolve, and national sacrifice. But pivot over to open-source intelligence and social media sentiment, and the picture becomes quite raw. Public discourse tracked through hashtags reveals localized panic, disrupted trade, and civilian casualties. Finding the objective truth requires us to carefully filter both of these streams.
Because of that, our intelligence confidence for this conflict currently sits at medium. Tracking sub-state violence in remote border regions means we have to filter a really heavy volume of unverified, mixed-quality social media reports alongside international news just to confirm actual state behavior. It's a complex puzzle.
Section 5. Forecast and Final Briefing.
Here is your intelligence watch list for the coming days. First, expect continued cross-border artillery and small arms exchanges. Neither side has shown a willingness to fully stand down just yet. Second, anticipate formal diplomatic protests and likely disruptions or closures at key transit points like the Chaman crossing. Third, and perhaps most dangerously, watch for retaliatory insurgent attacks deep inside Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, as militants attempt to exploit this ongoing friction.
And that brings us to a pivotal question as we look ahead. The balance of this conflict is incredibly fragile. Will this localized border friction remain contained within the bounds of coercive diplomacy, or will militant retaliation ignite a much broader regional crisis?
That concludes this morning's briefing. If you want to dive deeper into this analysis, please listen to the full Stylo News Intel Update audio explainer on your favorite channel or follow the link provided on this post. Thank you for joining us today. Remember, for AI-powered news on demand, you can always visit www.stylonews.com. Stay informed, have a great day, and keep a close watch on whether this fragile border friction remains contained or ignites a much larger regional fire.